This is the Today with Tally podcast. We're going to be talking today about Trump federalizing Washington, D.C. And the reason behind it is to reduce crime in America's capital. Additionally, he wants to clean the city up so when we have everybody coming in from not only across the country, kids on field trips, and people from around the world coming in to visit Washington, D.C., he wants them to see America at its best, not America at its worst. And with that, we welcome Bernie Flowers to the show. How are you, sir?
Tally man, how you doing, brother?
Another day. I've had my coffee, so I guess that's good.
Coffee's good.
Other than that, just trying to keep up with the politics in this country.
Good luck with that.
Boy, man, I don't have a comeback for that.
It's crazy, man. But I tell you what, things seem to be going our way right now. And, in order to have an omelet, you got to first break an egg. And that's how I see things. And the egg needs to be broken because we've had a lot of liberal politics in the inner cities that have just basically rendered them to be unlivable. And Mr. Trump's trying to fix it. That's what he's supposed to do as president. That's why we elected him.
Yeah, the first responsibility of government is safety, right?
Amen.
That's okay. I think that we've been living in a country for so long that so many people are used to dereliction of duty, and they're so used to things just being status quo that when somebody steps up to the plate to actually take a swing for the best and for the betterment of their country, a lot of folks don't even know what to think or respond to that. So their first thing out of their mouth is tyranny. Oh my God, this is it. Oh, here we go. And they start calling, the folks on the right bootlickers and brown shirts and all this. And it couldn't be further from the truth. These folks want chaos, and it's always been about chaos. It's always been about anarchy. It's always been about destabilizing this country that they hate and despise. And, the right is finally pushing back and said, you know what? Enough is enough. And if you don't like it, look, you can get out. You can be like Jimmy Kimmel and Ellen DeGeneres and all these other degenerates, if you will, that have left the country. Oh, I just love when they self-deport because it really is making America better.
There's an international flight leaving out of Baltimore National Airport or Baltimore International Airport pretty much every hour. They can get on it and the problems are over. Go on over and live in Somalia.
And then we have Dulles, and then we have Reagan, and then look, it's really easy. Take that. Want to get away? Yeah. All right, look, dude. I want to get your take on this because everybody is up in arms about what's going on if you're on the left, and everybody is applauding President Trump and what he's doing if you're standing on the right. What happens when things don't go the way of these left-wing, radical, progressive liberals? They kick, they scream, they throw temper tantrums, they hit the streets, they protest, mostly peaceful, they turn into destructive riots, and they burn it down. Now, word is on the street that they're planning just that, starting this Saturday from sea to shining sea, almost like the No King's Day protests. Well, as of right now, they've got two set up, one in Los Angeles and one in Washington, D.C. They're both going to be 24 hours outside of federal buildings in 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Now, what is your take on the federalization of Washington, D.C.?
Washington, D.C. has always been federalized. People don't understand that let's see, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17 of the United States Constitution basically says that DC is to be administered by the federal government, which means the United States government, as in the president of the United States, owns the place. And yeah, there was a move towards home rule back in the 70s. And so they're allowed to make this, that, and the other. But that's also serving at the pleasure of the president. And having been a person that's been in and out of DC every day, probably for the past 40 years, on and off when I wasn't deployed, the issue of the day is that there's a lot of crime there. There's, my measure of crime is that a little old lady should be able to go to the grocery store at midnight and not fear for her safety. And if that's not the case, then we've got work to do. And I can tell you that there's a lot of crime in DC, i.e., the way the rules work with the DC politicians is if a person commits a crime and they're under 18, they're not charged as an adult. So you got roving gangs of youngsters running around here doing the bidding of, more seasoned criminals, knowing that if they get caught, not much is going to happen to them. So that's part of the problem. And yeah, you go to DC and you expect to see all these wonderful monuments and it's supposed to be a beautiful city. Yeah, part of it is beautiful, but then nobody ever talks about Anacostia. Nobody ever talks about Southeast. Nobody ever talks about those wards where you just can't walk down the street, and this deal with this kid from Doge, Edward Cornstein, if I remember his name. He got beat up something awful trying to protect a young lady who was being accosted. And I guess with Trump, that was just the final straw. And it needs to be done. The people need to be able to walk the streets and be safe and secure in their own person and not feel that they're going to be carjacked or beaten across the head and shoulders. And like I said, even when I go to DC, I'm a pretty big guy and I'm pretty experienced, but I'm walking around with my head on a swivel. And the worst part is it's that way in most liberal big cities. I mean, most of the big cities are run by progressive Democrats. Baltimore is terrible. Atlanta is terrible. Detroit is terrible. East St. Louis is terrible. New York, on and on and on and on, where you've got a liberal run administration, you got chaos. So the president has the ability and the authority to make this happen. And some people are saying, oh, it's martial law and all that sort of stuff. Well, if you remember when they had that No Kings protest a while back in the spring, they spent like $2 billion on that. And you know what happened? It was a big nothing burger. I expect the same. The National Guard is nothing to be played with. And if it's deployed and more importantly, people are not understanding that life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is in the Constitution. And, you shouldn't have to give up your life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, and safety so that some 17-year-old kid can rob cars and make a living as a criminal on the street and not expect to be, chastised for their bad behavior. So the president is within his rights.
The comeback that the left has here is exactly what you had said. Why are you singling out Washington, D.C.? D.C. is at an all-time low with crime, they say. And additionally, they say the city's fine. We don't need any help here. We are no worse or no better than LA, Chicago, Houston, New York City, St. Louis, and Memphis, and on and on and on. But the left says the crime is down. Now, the crime may be down from 2020 because we all know, I think it peaked around there. It was horrible. So it could be down from, say, a couple of years ago, but it's still very high when you look at the population to homicide rate. And small crimes may be down, but I could tell you, since President Trump took the White House, the the violent crime in Washington, D.C. has been through the roof. And they're not just targeting just innocent people on the street. They're going after folks within the government.
Yeah.
There's been shootings. Those two Israeli. I think they were interns. And you've got this latest guy here with Doge, and even going back to 2020, I remember senators couldn't even go out and eat on the patio without them being, mobbed. How can you explain this to the progressive Democrats or the anti-Trumpers in this country that this is not a dictator that is trying to insulate himself in America's capital while he goes out and wreaks havoc on the country, taking away everybody's rights and totally operating under a dictatorship in the United States of America. That's what these folks are deathly afraid of this happening. And I want your take on that.
Well, here's how I look at things. The president's job is to secure the rights and liberty of the American people. So if you've got people living in DC who are not criminals and they're just regular Americans trying to get through the day and they don't feel safe, then the president is not doing his job. He is actually trying to make things happen. And for the average American who pays taxes and expects to see good schools and wants to be able to walk down the street at night without being accosted or without seeing something crazy on the subway. I'm looking at a chart right now, 2024 murder rate, and they've got international cities listed, starting with Madrid, London, Manila, Paris, Ottawa. DC has twice as many murders internationally as Bogota, Colombia, the cocaine capital of the world. But yet, if you listen to mainstream media, you won't see that statistic because remember, mainstream media is run by people who want the chaos to continue. So somebody's lying. And there's an article that I read just the other day, matter of fact, just yesterday, and the police unit in DC is complaining that the higher ups in the police department have been cooking the books a little bit. They have been reporting accurate stats and they're saying crime is down where crime is actually up. And so there's an investigation going into that. But again, the president is within his rights and responsibilities to secure DC as the District of Columbia. And that goes for pretty much any other place in the United States. People pay taxes so that we can be safe and secure. That's the president's job. That's why we elected him. But the main thing is DC is supposed to be an enclave separate from the rest of the United States so business can be done in an equitable and fair manner for all the states. That's pretty much how the Constitution was written. And again, the president he's had enough. All this crime, all this chaos, it has to stop. So my take, president's right, spot on. And I hope that he brings his crusade of crime fighting up to Baltimore as soon as he can.
Do you see this continuing on in other cities if it is successful in Washington, D.C.?
I don't know that it will have to happen because criminals are generally pretty smart. And if they see that there has been a game change, they will modify their behavior. And I think that behavior modification will be very beneficial to the rest of the country, the law-abiding part of the country. I can tell you in Baltimore, I get there pretty often. I'm in DC pretty often. I travel all around the United States, but specifically in Baltimore, it's just not a safe place. It really isn't. My wife and I, we live 20 minutes away from Baltimore, but when we want to go to dinner, we go to the suburbs outside the city. If you go into the inner city, you're subject to be robbed or mugged or whatever. I don't want to make people afraid. But the issue it is, that's just the way things are. And when these liberal outlets, these MSNBCs and people like that, they're very, very selective on who they talk to. And I don't think that they're giving the main story. But remember, only 6 companies own all the media in this country, and they have a liberal slant that puts them in a situation where, if it bleeds, it leads. So they want this chaos to continue so they can continue making more money and keep people afraid. The president is fighting the good fight so that all Americans, even inner city Americans, can have a safe environment to live in. And that's what we're supposed to be doing.
I like how you said life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
There you go.
These folks that are going out and obstructing and destructing this nation could care less about freedom. They just want to take it away from other people. And we all know that freedom requires responsibility. And unfortunately, we have a lot of irresponsible citizens in this country that are ruining it for everybody else. And that right there is very selfish. But I'm not surprised because, again, these folks despise the United States of America. And ever since 2008, when Barack Hussein Obama took office in this country, the first thing he did was apologize to the world. America is sorry. And this is what started this progressive wave of anti-Americans standing up and fighting against our very principles and the hallmarks of this country. And now here we are all these years later. We had a radical as a president for 8 years. It radicalized the left. And now we're starting to see some of the radicalization of the right. I mean, look, you fight fire with fire.
Yeah.
And I don't know how this is going to end. They've been calling for a civil war in this country for 20 years or more. And every, couple months, there's some big protest plan. And, it really gets people on edge. It riles people up. It gets people to view into their local TV stations, to their local favorite political talking heads on TV, to their favorite social media influencers. And all it does really is it drives anxiety through the roof, and it creates this cesspool of nothing but filth and garbage of people fighting this battle, if you will, this Cold War, this culture / social Cold War. And at some point, this Cold War is going to turn hot. I just don't know what that looks like. Do you?
I've never experienced anything like this. But here's the point. A lot of people really don't participate in society like you and I do. They're taking their kids to school. They're going about their business at work. And they're not affected by crime at all. It depends on where you live. If you're living in Topeka, Kansas, none of this stuff should matter to you. But if you're watching TV, if you're watching MSNBC, the liberals would make you think the world is on fire. But if you're living in, I don't know, Red Springs, North Carolina, where I'm from, none of that stuff really matters. But television, radio, media, they radicalize people and get everybody all angry and disjointed and divided. And remember the old Roman rule, divide and conquer. So when you get people, it's funny. One of my relatives reached out to me yesterday morning because he saw all this stuff on television and he knows that I'm pretty much politically connected. And he asked, is the president trying to institute martial law? Is he trying to take it over DC? And I explained to him about the Constitution and what I just mentioned earlier about the idea that the federal government is actually responsible for the District of Columbia. And and it's supposed to be a neutral place. And he didn't even know that. And he's older than I am. And so he was appreciative of the conversation that we had. But he lives in a small town in North Carolina, and this stuff, people are being riled up and angry with the president and not understanding that they're in a nice country place where none of this stuff happens. Another concept to think of is, okay, think about this. The liberals want to restrict our ability to own weapons. They want you to show ID when you buy a weapon. I don't have a problem with that. But these are the very same people who, in my state, don't want you to show ID when you vote. So, which one is it? They're just trying to sow chaos. And chaos is a tool of the devil, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, I said it. Um, Good things don't come from chaos. Good things come from unity. And these people are trying to create chaos. They're trying to get people angry for no reason, trying to create a civil war. But who's got most of the weapons? You know, most of the people I know average about 5 or 6 heavy weapons, long guns, that sort of thing. If the liberals wanted to create chaos, they wouldn't last very long because most of them don't have weapons and most of them don't know how to defend themselves. But that's another story. We should never even think like that. The issue of the day is the average American deserves to be safe and secure in their own personal property and their own family. And we, as the warriors of the world, need to make that happen either through a microphone like you're using or a gun like one of us, both of us used to use when we were in uniform. The issue of the day is that's why we stand up and raise our right hand and basically give up our youth so that we can defend the rest of the country.
Yeah, you know exactly, Bernie. Look, you talk about voter ID. You know, these folks love to cherry pick the Constitution.
Oh, yeah.
When it's not being cherry picked, it's being soiled in piss or being used as a doormat into mama's basement. Because again, you're exactly right. They are sowing the seeds of chaos. They may hate their life and they may not have anything going for them in life. So they want to ruin it for everybody. Oh, you're successful? Ha, I'm going to stand in your way. Oh, you have kids and enjoy going to the park? Huh, I'm going to go hang out there with all my homeless friends and smoke crack and leave needles around. Oh, you like going downtown? Oh, we're going to go down there and we're going to assault you and we're going to mug you and we're going to rob you after you leave a baseball game or a football game. You know, we have the contributors of society every single day that go to work, that pay their taxes, that raise their families to be honorable American citizens, to do the right thing. To have these great, again, there's so many great families in this country. And then you have the radical left who wants to tear it all down. You know, it started really in late 2020 and 21, 22, 23, and 24, I believe are some of the worst years that we have ever experienced in our 250-year history in this country. The Marxist ideologies, the DEI. I mean, we had a weaponized system in this country that was arresting mothers for speaking out at school board meetings.
Yeah.
And these folks on the left state that Trump is a dictator and he's going to take over America and completely militarize our entire country because of what he's doing in DC. And by the way, this isn't a forever thing, guys. This is a 30-day test to see how this operates. And also, DC police is on their own. Our National Guard is not going to go out and pull people over and arrest them. Okay. The National Guard is there as an additional resource if needed. They are basically there to safeguard the inner city of Washington and basically just stand on a corner or stand in front of a monument. And if things escalate, they have the backs of DC police. And we all know all these cities in the United States of America, their police departments have been handcuffed. No pun intended, but these police officers have not been able to do their job for a very long time in this country. And now they're like, wow, we actually have somebody that's going to come in here and that's going to support us, allow us to do our job, allow us to protect and serve our communities the way that these people deserve to be protected and served. So again, I do support what President Trump is doing, but I want to read you this. And what I'm going to do, if you don't mind, is I am on social media right now. And I want to read to you. And like I said, I'm not cherry picking this. I literally just came on here and I'm just scrolling through. And if I find something interesting, I'm going to read it to you. Because this is how the other side is feeling right now. And they're hell bent right now on nothing but chaos. These people are pissed. So I want to get your take on this. It states that you are embracing authoritarianism. You don't love America. Trump doesn't love America. You just love white supremacy. That is all you care about. Crime is at a 40-year low in DC. One Trump loyalist gets assaulted and he declares martial law. You lick the boots of fascism. What are your thoughts?
I was just called a bootlicker just the other day, and I consider it to be a badge of courage. Here's the deal. My children, my grandchildren, are very young. And as I said before, they should be able to go to monuments and the districts and enjoy themselves. And if they can't do that, society is in the wrong. Okay. These people, a lot of these folks that might be, sending you these comments, well, there are also a lot of paid protesters out there. There's a lot of hackers out there that are doing these things for various nefarious reasons. They are not organic, a lot of them. Now, yeah, you're going to find some people that are just plain old flat out leftist, and God love them. But, why don't you take some of that leftist behavior and take it somewhere where it counts? I mean, for example, when we left Afghanistan, all these women's initiatives that had been put in place and women being allowed to walk around like normal people and not be chastised without wearing their burqas. Well, can't do that anymore. All those women's rights have gone away. And there's other places, Somalia, you get all these people coming from here, there, and the other complaining. Go back home and fix your messed up country. Don't come over here bringing your stuff here. But again, I've been called, that term bootlicker resonated with me because somebody replied in my comments the other day when I was chastising Jasmine Crockett. And I thought that was pretty funny. So, like I said, I have no use for people who hide behind comments like that. And most of these people, unlike you and I, won't put their name out there. Everybody knows who you are. Everybody knows who I am. We put our names out on social media. We make ourselves available to people. But most of these people are commenting and they're anonymous, which makes them cowardly. So I have no use for stuff like that.
They say that they're standing up now, right? When again, that couldn't be further from the truth. What they're standing up for is to promote a fight. That's what they want. They want a fight. And I don't know if they're going to get one, but they're begging. And somebody reached out to me and said, Tally, you don't think that they're doing this just to instigate a fight or just to instigate a riot? What if somebody shows up from that crowd, in a big protest in Los Angeles or say DC, because we know that DC has literal boots on the ground right now from the National Guard. Say if somebody fires a shot indiscriminately in the air, just boom. or in a crowd somewhere, and the National Guard responds with great force. What's that going to look like? And additionally, President Trump said, if you spit, we hit. So what if everybody starts spitting at the DC police and at Capitol Police and at the National Guard? And there's a fight that ensues when you have tens and thousands of people there. That can be an absolute riot that could turn into a lot of really bad scenarios playing out. And if it does play out, it's going to play out on national TV. And that will quickly spill over to every American city in the country, especially the blue cities. And it will basically be a call to action to go out and protest and riot in the cities that you call home, but to attack federal officers and your local police officers. What? To get their governors to call in the National Guard? I mean, so what's going to be happening on Saturday? I do have some concerns, because I do believe that there will be perhaps a lone actor out there or two that will want to instigate this just to test what President Trump will do and what the reaction will be from these troops on the ground and what the reaction will be from DC police.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, spitting on someone is considered to be assault. And when you got police officers and trained guardsmen out there, they're not going to take that. Now, as you very well know, there are all sorts of non-lethal methods to control crowds, and things that you've seen, but that most people haven't. A lot of these things haven't even been deployed yet, and some of them are classified. You bring that stuff out, and then people will bring out, other countermeasures. But the issue of the day is they won't be able to respond to this. For example, let's just talk about, let's say, what if, somebody does something like that, like you mentioned. Next thing you know, the commanders on the ground clear the area, and they bring out the microwave. You've been in a tear gas test, right? I mean, the gas.
Oh,
well,
yeah.
That's a non-lethal way to clear a crowd. Okay. If you defeat that, you bring out those microwave units that I've never seen deployed before, but that's 30-year-old technology. You bring that out, I don't care who you are. Even if you're Frankenstein himself, you're not going to be able to stand a mobile microwave being beamed at you. And there's not precedence for that, but it is in our arsenal. And there's some other tricks of the trade that can disperse crowds and that sort of thing. So we'll see how this all turns out. The question of the day, it all breaks down to the commanders on the ground, and if they're properly trained, if the soldiers do what they're supposed to do. And I've got my money on the soldiers and the National Guardsmen that know how to do these sorts of things. So talk is cheap. I remember this No Kings protest that happened a couple of months ago, and they spent oogobs of money and nothing came of it. Matter of fact, I was in Philadelphia that weekend when they did this, and it was supposed to be the national center for the No Kings protest. I noticed very, very, very few organic protests out there. And I talked to some of the people in the local area in the suburbs south of Philadelphia. They didn't even know anything about the No Kings protest. They were totally oblivious to it. We were at a big party having a good old time with some people that had invited us up. But I guess what I'm trying to say is the news media hypes things up for various reasons. And we just need to calm down and take it easy and understand that we're all Americans here. We're in a big melting pot. And those who don't belong in the melting pot, you go home and protest in Somalia or China or some other godforsaken third world place.
Agree. Self-deport, right? If you don't like this country.
Hit the bricks.
You know what the crazy thing is folks are saying that what President Trump is doing to this country is destroying it to pieces. These folks literally believe that President Trump has destroyed this country. And
in 200 days?
I'm looking at it. And I'm like, How many times in American history have we voted for a president that has actually said everything he's going to do and has checked boxes as he goes down the line? Mission accomplished, mission accomplished, mission accomplished. There's not too many presidents out there that have ever operated this fast and this successful when it comes to policies that were promised to the American voters. Now, people say our country's in pieces. Well, okay, well, let's talk about what we saw for the 4 years under Biden. We had NGOs out aiding and abetting illegal alien criminal activity
at taxpayer expense.
Right. And they call it a non-government organization when they're funded by the government. So how is an NGO even considered to be a non-government? They need to change their names. So we had all of our money going there. We sent billions. I mean, I'm talking pallets of cash to Ukraine. We had U.S. sitting members of Congress wearing Ukraine pens and every other pen you can think of besides the American flag on their lapel. The economy was in literal pieces. We had a supply chain issue that was unprecedented. Our energy policy was in shambles, and we were purchasing oil from overseas while neglecting our own here in this country. We had a border crisis, a humanitarian crisis. 20 million illegal aliens pour across our border.
Or more.
Unchecked, unvetted. And we allowed them in through a revolving door and handed them the keys to the country, debit cards in 5-star hotels. Here you go. You're free to move about the country. A lot were coming in with criminal intent on their mind. And as you can see, they've proven that to be correct. Drug trafficking at an all-time high. Fentanyl being distributed all across the country, taking the lives of innocent children every single day. The Afghanistan withdrawal, a botched withdrawal after this 20-year war on terror, we cut and ran at the expense of everybody that served in this war, the blood it has shed, and all the good we did in Afghanistan trying to make it a free and fair country just went right back to the hands of the Taliban. Not to mention the 13 U.S. service members that were KIA on the way out in Kabul during that. The worst military withdrawal probably in the history of the world in any military. Then we resupplied the enemy with $8 billion of assets. Oh, and let me tell you, the Taliban is as strong as they've ever been. We had woke policies going throughout the entire country. We had teachers and administrators recruiting children to change their genders. If Johnny was feeling like Jamie, well, guess what? Or Jennifer? Oh, are you comfortable in your own skin? Do you want to be a boy, or do you want to be a girl, or are you even a male or a female? Here, you can be a binary or this, and I mean, they create all these words. Oh, I want to be a cat. Meow. Oh, okay. And now they're a cat. And the schools were literally putting litter boxes in bathrooms because you have kids identifying as whatever they want to identify as. We had a shadow government in this country. We didn't know who. I mean, literally, President Trump, love him or hate him, he comes out every single day, multiple times a day, and gives briefings on on the work of the day. He puts out a schedule every single day. I mean, the most transparent president that we've ever seen. But again, the left is never satisfied. They're never satisfied with anything. Literally, Trump could cure cancer and they would freaking hate him for it. They hate Trump for everything. Literally, do you know how many Democrats that were sending to go out and buy "Don't Tread on Me" flags? Dude, there's probably a lot because they say, oh, the government's turning tyrannical on us, all of us. No. We finally have a U.S. president that loves this country enough to freaking save her and to bring her out of the ashes and to put America back where it belongs. And that is on top of the world, folks. We are the greatest country in the history of mankind, and we have treated this country like shit, and we have neglected this country. And it's about time somebody show up and show out and say, we're done here. This is the United States of America, and we're going to start acting like it again. The lawlessness, the crime, the looting, the unlawful protest, the shutting down of freeways in interstates, in interstate commerce, and the flow of goods and services. The partisan divide, that's all they did, is continued that divide, and they put it in our faces. They shoved it down our throats. The weaponized DOJ, the weaponized FBI, the frivolous lawsuits. We had so many criminals in this country getting off scot-free because the only thing that this country was set out to do was to put Donald Trump in handcuffs and put him behind bars to where he could never be the president of the United States ever again. I mean, he's standing in the gap here, because they're coming for us, and he's saying, nope, you got to come through me first. And all these frivolous charges against him, like I said, they're hell bent on taking out President Trump. He even took a shot at him, and this is all coming out. The stuff with Adam Schiff, look, this is all coming out. And the left, they bring their propaganda to the table every single time. But look, we bring receipts. We bring receipts and I'm just going off a couple that I just wrote down here before the show, and that's just a few. I mean, and I can go on and on about this.
Bottom line is that I see this as an attempt of the Marxist class / globalist to take over what is good not only in this country, but in our world. They've been at this for a long time. It goes back to the 1800s, and they have no intention of letting people be free and have liberty. They find that to be abhorrent to their philosophy. So that's why they're sowing up all this discontent, and they're using the poor and downtrodden to do so. They're trying to attack the middle class. The middle class is the glue that keeps America together. And as long as they keep us on our heels, then they have free reign to do stupid stuff. And the average person doesn't want to do that. The average person just wants to go to work, raise their kids, mind their business. Most people have no contact with law enforcement at all. You're probably in your neighborhood. You got a nice neighborhood. You sit there, mind your business, take your kid to baseball, love on your family. But you probably might not see a cop for, months at a time unless they're riding by, going after someone else. But the issue of the day is these people that control the media, they want to get everybody all spun up and make you think that martial law is coming. No, martial law isn't coming, but it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. But the idea is, to me, when they talk about fascists, well, what happens in my world is when government and corporations work together against the people, that's fascism. And we've had all these big tech corporations like Facebook and all these other organizations that have merged with the Biden administration, and they were basically changing our reality. I will give Elon Musk credit. He spent, I think it was $42 billion of his own money to make sure that we had a free speech platform. I don't agree with everything Elon's done, but his purchase of X, to me, was a turning point in our entire movement because it gave us a place that couldn't be corrupted. So now you can go on and say whatever's on your mind and not feel that you're being monitored. And now Facebook and some of these other platforms are following suit. But you've got to have the ability to have free speech in order to have a democracy or even a constitutional republic. And that's kind of where we were going. That's where the Biden administration and their globalist benefactors were steering us. And thank God for Trump, because he stopped it. And now we're moving in the other direction. We need to get behind him. And bottom line is that the average middle class person appreciates what he's doing. That's why he ended up winning the election. So that's how I feel about it. So I don't worry about these rabble rousers on the left, because most of them are disingenuous in their thoughts. Most of them are being paid. Most of them don't know their ass from their elbow. Go try this in Mexico City and see what will happen to you. Or down in Bogota, Colombia, or in China. You'll disappear. Nobody will ever hear from you again.
Yeah, and let's not forget that President Trump was duly elected.
Yes. And that's another story. I mean, bottom line, if I could get back to my old creds and what I used to do for a living, it's a blessing and a curse, because in his first iteration as president, there were people in very high levels that were slow rolling his orders. I can give you, I wouldn't want to do it on the air, but just trust me, they weren't following him. And if you notice, there was a purge of very, very senior 4-star officials not long ago. The director of NSA got removed. The director, or better yet, the chief of the Coast Guard got removed. Some other high level, the chief of the Air Force was C.W. Brown, got removed. These people were all embedded Bidenites. And in order for the military to change, they had to go, and their woke ideologies had to be purged. And that was, if you remember, within the first 100 days, those are some of the first things Mr. Trump had to do, is get rid of those service chiefs that were basically woke. And now things are changing. The military is on an upswing. Recruiting is as good as it's been in a long time. And I try to credit that. But the idea is that had Trump not been cheated that first time, we wouldn't really understand how bad and how corrupt our government really was. So you saw all these things under Biden. People can't refute that. Biden was just doing some really bad things. If he had been elected again, or Kamala Harris, this country would be bankrupt. And at this point, we owe $37 trillion. But that's starting to come down with the plan, with the tariffs and all that sort of stuff. But the issue of the day is we were on a bad path, and thank God that Trump didn't back down. Because if I were a billionaire, I'll tell you, I'd probably be in Mar-a-Lago or some other place doing billionaire things instead of losing money as a president, trying to fight the good fight for the American people. Oh, by the way, this stat, but it's worth repeating. He's the only president in modern history that I know of that lost money while in office. All the rest of them, Bush, Obama, Biden, certainly, their personal fortunes increased. Bush, these guys made money hand over fist because they're globalists and they were making deals, in my opinion. But when it comes to Trump, his personal fortune actually was reduced. He's doing this because of the goodness of his heart. He's doing this because he's a good American. Do I agree with everything he does? No, but give him some grace. He's got a big job and he's trying to make things better for us. So let's get out there and support him.
Amen. And he shows up every single day. I mean, the man doesn't sleep. He is always putting America first.
There you go.
Reworking deals, having America win. And for such a long period of time, America never won. Everybody comes to us for help and for money, and literally milking us dry. I mean, look at our national debt.
Insane.
That right there says a lot about our country and the priorities of government. And Trump has come in and he's taken this head on. And to have so much success in such a short period of time tells me that he's got a lot of folks in there that are working for the good of the country. and have bought into his system of America first. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. Look, if we wouldn't have had that 4 years of things that were coming out, it could have been a lot different. And right now, where would we be? Wow, we would. And I'm not saying it was great under Biden. I mean, I literally lived in a 4 years of depression, watching my country die a very slow and painful death. And there was times that I thought that the United States of America was done, and as we knew it. And the left is coming out as claiming for Trump to be a dictator. And, because of what's going on with the DC takeover, the police, and them thinking that President Trump is going to want to provoke something that will lead to more chaos and potentially some sort of a civil war in this country to stop all the great policy that he is putting forth to make America great. Now, let's just, again, I just wrote a few things down when you were talking. No Google, no nothing, just off memory. They claim he's a dictator. Okay. Well, we almost had a president that would have taken over the country with stage 4 cancer.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. Not to mention his dementia and everything else that is wrong with Biden. We all knew this, but they said, nope, he's fine. He's fine. He's in great shape. I mean, dude, he
lied. The media lied to us.
Yeah. He couldn't barely walk. He couldn't put 2 sentences together. He had stage 4. I mean, they came out, oh, he has stage 4 cancer. What, just a couple of months after the election, and they tried to brush that underneath the rug. And talk about a dictatorship. We already had 4 years of a shadow government. We barely saw him. Who was running the country? Again, these unelected bureaucrats that don't have America in their best interest. These are the radical progressives that are wanting to change the fabric of America. And again, who we are as a country, the 250 years of our existence. Additionally, Zuckerberg, he came out during this 4 years. What did he say? I was under immense pressure by the Biden administration to silence the conservatives on Facebook.
Yep.
He testified to that.
He sure did.
He said, what am I going to do? I got the government coming after me saying that you will do that. He was like, I was afraid. They were hitting my employees. They were targeting me. So I did it.
And I mentioned fascism before. Yeah. That's fascism.
Yeah.
When the government and private industry are conspiring against the people's will, that's fascism to me.
At least he came out and he admitted it, though, because again, we knew it. Everybody knew it. The only people that were being silenced and removed from Facebook and a lot of these social media platforms were folks like us that were saying, and when I go on social media, I always operate with professionalism. I'm not there to, call people names like, the left, they're the party of acceptance, but they are not very accepting to folks like you and I who love this country and that have great families and that contribute honorably every day to our communities and to our society around us to make it better, to go out and support small business and pay our taxes and have our kids do great things and thrive in life through sports and, recreation and through arts and, whatever else it may be, that we are there as a support structure of that love and affection and everything is for our families. And again, the left cannot stand the family unit. They don't love the family unit. They only love what is in their little circle of what they believe. And if you aren't in that little circle of what they believe, you are the devil, and they will do whatever that they can to attack you, to attack your credibility, and everything that you have ever put yourself out to be. They will break it down and they will light it on fire.
This is the Today with Tally podcast.